This year, we have seen tremendous changes around the conversation on DEI. Yes, we can still talk about it, and we will in this episode. See, as mid-career leaders and professionals, I know that one of your biggest concerns is that you don't want to make a mistake. And what if that mistake resulted in you potentially being canceled? How could you show up with meaningful intentions and without fear of being canceled or doing irreputable harm to your career? You show up from a place that my guest today calls kind curiosity. Today, I am joined by Bernadette Smith, the CEO of the Equality Institute, who is here to talk to us about what it means to have good vibes in DEI, especially in today's world. She'll also talk to us about what DEI truly is, how unconscious assumptions can be handled. She'll share with us her ARC method for handling any situation and why her love of pickleball has been a great source of connecting with others. So, let's get started. Hello, my friends. This is the Mid-Career GPS podcast, and I'm your host, John Nerrell. I help mid-career professionals like you find a job they love or love the job they have using my proven four-step formula. Bernadette Smith, the CEO of Equality Institute, is a sought-after speaker and award-winning author of 4 books, including her bestseller, Inclusive 360, Proven Solutions for an Equitable Organization. Instead of creating overwhelm or fear around diversity, Bernadette's keynotes use humor and relatability to inspire meaningful action, winning over even the skeptics. Praised as relatable, authentic, and fun, Bernadette's approach has earned the trust of leading brands, including Fortune 500 companies and global leadership teams. Her influence as a champion for inclusion and belonging has been spotlighted by the New York Times, National Public Radio, CNN, and The Today Show. And she's been named one of Chicago's notable LGBTQ executives by Crain's Chicago Business. So, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Bernadette Smith. Bernadette, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks, John. It's a treat to be invited.
Yes, we're going to have a great conversation. I appreciate you being here with us today because this whole conversation around DEI is one that we need to have, and we're going to talk about it. Your journey, however, is interesting to say the least. You've got a pretty powerful mid-career moment I would love for you to share with us.
Well, I used to be a wedding planner with an LGBTQ specialty, and now I own a small management consulting firm and I'm a speaker and writer. That's what I love to do, is speak and write. So I left the weddings behind.
Do you miss it?
Well, I certainly didn't miss it during COVID, let's be honest.
Right.
But no, I don't miss it at all. In fact, I don't really even have those skills anymore. I'm not nearly as organized as I used to be. It's like those skills faded away. And now I really think that I've sort of stepped more into my visionary phase. I think when I started that business 20 years ago, I started it because I had a very strong vision, and I am a visionary person. It's just that the business that I chose happened to be wedding planning, which requires a lot of attention to detail.
Without question. And I love how you bring up that sometimes our skills transition and when we don't use those particularly skills, we're not as good at them that we would be now as opposed to when we were years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I say the same thing because I used to teach mathematics, and friends will be like, "Can you tutor my kid?" I'm like, "It's been 15 years since I've done it. I could probably, but it's not something I want to do." Right. So you kind of have to keep working those muscles and stuff. I don't want to save this until the end because this is just an interesting fact that you and I had talked about in our pre-call, but you love pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you can just share with us, like, what's been that for you, especially as an outlet, but also as for potentially networking.
Yeah, so pickleball is a passion of mine. I play probably 6 times a week in the summer or when it's warm out, and then right now I'm playing 3 or 4 times a week. I love it because it's the first hobby I've ever had. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and that has required a lot of hustle energy, a lot of obsession with my business in an unhealthy way. And I didn't have an outlet that had ever really stuck before, and nothing really interested me or stuck. But as soon as I played pickleball for the first time, it was an obsession, and it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it's sort of given me a lot of stories as well, and a good opportunity to meet folks and to network. So yeah, it's definitely it brings me into worlds that I wouldn't otherwise find.
Talk to us a little bit about how pickleball connects to DEI for you.
Sure. So a lot of pickleball is played in open play, which is essentially like a pickup game. You never know quite who's going to be there, and so it can be an opportunity to meet lots of different kinds of folks. And one of the first experiences I had was, getting decently good at pickleball and starting to have some swagger and some confidence, and then getting my butt beat by a bunch of 70-year-olds, right? So learning that I'm ageist on the pickleball court is certainly, kind of a lesson in inclusion, or a lesson even in, my own biases, right? And so the pickleball brings so many different kinds of people together. That's the diversity. And I've even played with people in wheelchairs. So it's really been a gift, a gift. Lots of amazing folks I meet.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And let's never underestimate the power of a 70-year-old who's really good
That's
at
right.
pickleball or other things as well. So,
Yeah.
Bernadette, I want to let our listeners in here. So, you and I are recording this episode on February 20th. This episode
Hmm.
is scheduled to drop in early April. And it goes without question that the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a big topic in focus, especially in the first quarter of this year. Um,
Yeah.
in your bio, and I mentioned this a little bit in the introduction, but your intention is to shine the light on good vibes in DEI and inspire others to connect authentically with those different from themselves. And I love how you phrase that, but can you let us in terms
Hmm.
of what are good vibes in DEI to you?
Oh, good vibes and DEI. So I have a newsletter called Five Things, and a podcast that goes along with it called Five Things in 15 Minutes. And those five things are always what I consider to be good vibes in DEI. And I started writing it about 6 years ago. And what I find are silver linings. Sometimes it is companies standing up when, and in the past, I should say, I have featured, companies who stood up when abortion rights were overturned, and they were providing travel reimbursements for their employees traveling out of state, things like that, things that were like shining lights. I've Yeah, everything from first Black artist to win a country music award, Beyonce, or a Grammy for country music, Beyonce. So that's a good vibe in DEI. Some things from the last Super Bowl, um, you know, Jalen Hunts's all women management team, the winning quarterback, right? So, or Jalen Hurts. So those are the types of things. Sometimes they're related to human resources policies and benefits. Sometimes they're related to public policies or anti-discrimination laws that are passed. Sometimes they're about products and marketing.
When you watch or you read the news or you're following on social media and you're seeing the conversations that are out there around DEI, what is it that you believe people are simply missing or overlooking around the importance of DEI?
I think a lot of folks misunderstand what it means. That's sort of the first thing. I think that they think it means preferential treatment, or being anti-white or anti-straight or anti anything. I think ultimately it's the term has been sort of weaponized. But what it's really about is making sure that we remember that our world is diverse, and it's increasingly diverse. And we want to be able to seize the potential of that diversity, right? And essentially capitalize on it, benefit from it. But we don't get there without equity and inclusion, right? And so equity and inclusion are sort of the steps that can harness the power of diversity and benefit everyone.
Absolutely. And we're certainly seeing some companies stand up and continue to support their DEI initiatives where others are um, dismantling, letting them
Sure.
go, not putting that kind of focus as they once were.
Yeah.
It was interesting. You were talking about the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts's all-female management team. And I was like, oh, and what kind of popped up for me around that was there was a representative, I'm not going to say her name, but she tweeted out, said, something to the fact of, does anybody get this halftime show? Can we have subtitles? And those comments were all like, that's DEI, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those kind of things there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Equity. Let's talk about equity for a second, because in the workplace, especially for a mid-career professional, somebody who is leading teams or they're leading departments or organizations, what are some of the things, especially by law, but also simply based on awareness, should they be focused around equity?
Yeah. So in terms of creating a more equitable environment for others, or leveraging themselves.
Let's start with for others first.
Well, I think, when we think about equity, let's first define it, which is essentially setting others up for success, or setting people up for success, keeping in mind their individual circumstances or their individual backgrounds, right? And so equity can look like opportunities for those who have experienced a lot of systemic oppression. So we've seen, incubator programs and scholarships and sponsorships. Those are all examples of equity. So specifically for a mid-career professional, I think I would lean into mentorship and sponsorship. I think those are sort of the best places to be able to pay it forward to others, especially given the wisdom of your own experience.
Hey there. Have you ever been hesitant to like a LinkedIn post about finding a new job because you're fearful of being seen by your employer or colleague? I get it. I see you, my friend. Since you're already listening to this podcast, I want to help you get an even bigger win in your career. And to do that, I'm inviting you to join my free email community and subscribe to the Mid-Career GPS newsletter. It's delivered to your inbox twice each week with helpful tips, strategies, and resources to help you find that job you love or love the job you have. It's all free, and you can subscribe by visiting my website at johnnerrell.com. Check the show notes or my LinkedIn. For now, let's get back to the episode. I don't even want to say years ago, because I got to catch myself here, because I find myself saying that phrase and I'm like, no, we need to keep remembering that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the words that come up for me are representation matters, right?
Sure.
We see people who are at the table who represent us, they look like us, they are like us, and things like that. And one of the things I repeatedly hear from my clients and people in my network who, to characterize them, they are big hearted, heart centric individuals.
Yep.
They don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to
Mm-hmm.
screw up. They don't want to offend. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that will come up is they'll sometimes get caught with, unintentionally making an assumption, and now they feel like they
Mhm.
have to over apologize because they didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about whether that's helpful or not in the workplace, and what steps people can do to um, manage their assumptions?
Yeah, this is a great question. I talk about this a lot because we're unconsciously making assumptions about others all the time, about their potential, about their fit, about what we think is happening in their personal life. I mean, we do it all the time, but those assumptions can prevent us from establishing genuine connection. And I think we've gotten ourselves, unfortunately, into this place with cancel culture where people are so afraid of saying the wrong thing. They're afraid of getting it wrong, and so they tend to stay in their own lane. And because they don't want to accidentally offend someone, they don't say anything. And so really the trick here, especially if you've made a mistaken assumption and you need to apologize, is do not over apologize. First of all, apologize once. Keep it really simple and then move on. Simple but sincere. So say, I'm so sorry. I'm still learning. I'm going to get it better next time. And then move on, change the subject. And then make sure you get it better next time. But really don't over apologize, because then that puts the person that you've accidentally offended in a position of, do they have to then comfort you? It just makes it all the more awkward.
Uh, yeah, yeah, I could see that playing out in my mind, even from my own experiences in somewhere where you feel like you have to overcompensate, and now
Yeah.
the energy just shifts, and it's not good. It's
Exactly.
not good in that
Exactly. And
regard.
then that becomes a barrier to an authentic relationship, right?
Mhm. So can you give us another example? Because I love how you phrased about making that apology simple but sincere.
Hmm.
You gave us an example before, but can you give us another one just in terms of what that might sound like for somebody to give that simple and sincere apology?
I'm so sorry. I'm working on this. This is new to me, but I'm going to get it right. And really, some version of that.
Mhm.
Honestly, whatever is going to be authentic to you, but some version of that, and then ultimately change the subject. Listen, I do this with my partner all the time. I did it last night. I had to apologize for something, but I didn't want to sit in that misery. I changed the subject right afterwards. It works in all
Yeah.
sorts of scenarios, right? But I think that the
Okay.
bottom line is we have to be sincere. We have to commit to doing better, but no one wants the discomfort to
Right.
linger.
No, thank you for that. Bernadette, something else that you talk about that really resonated for me in prepping for our conversation. You talk about kind curiosity.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to dig a little more deeply with that for our listeners today. Exactly what is kind curiosity, and why should people be doing it?
Yeah, kind curiosity is so important, especially as we have kind of these silos around us. Like I said, I think we tend to stay in our lanes. A lot of times, our personal and our professional networks are people who check similar demographic boxes to the ones we check. And that means that we're not, listen, leveraging diversity. We're not expanding our worldview. We're not having access to others' experiences, and we're not having as much fun. Let's be honest. But the antidote to all of that is kind curiosity. And I have a tool called the ARC method, which stands for ask, respect, connect. We always want to ask from a place of kind curiosity. So maybe that starts with sharing a little bit of your own experience first. And we know, for example, in the workplace, you might have someone who seems to be struggling. Maybe they're missing deadlines. You don't know why. Start with kind curiosity. Start with maybe sharing a little bit of your own experience. Hey, it's been really strange around here lately. Lots of changes. How are you holding up? It's been stressful for me. How's it been for you? Kind curiosity. But then you want to respect what you hear. That's the R. And then C is sort of tie it all together and connect by maybe paraphrasing or validating. So that's the ARC method.
So ask, respect, connect.
Connect. Yes.
Okay.
ARC.
And you do a lot of work with sales professionals, particularly using this ARC method, correct?
Yeah, I love speaking with folks in sales and client facing roles because they in particular are interacting with an increasingly diverse client base, right? And so I want to help them build authentic relationships that they can sustain with their increasingly diverse clients. And again, they can be a little bit tight because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. They might feel like they're walking on eggshells, but if they bring the ARC method, if they use kind curiosity, they can have more meaningful relationships, more meaningful client relationships.
Do you have a success story to share with us about how, be it either through one of your speaking engagements or one of your corporate relationships, if you will, that kind curiosity or the ARC method were adopted that yielded some great results?
Yeah, I just got a LinkedIn message the other day from someone about this. Someone who had just randomly, through his company, attended one of my keynotes and sent me a message about how he has been following the ARC and how he's starting to get to know people better on his team, people that he hadn't really talked to much before, and now they have a better relationship. I'm like, yes, that's why we're doing this. That's why it matters. And when we have those better relationships where we know the people on our team more, we can also have more psychological safety. And psychological safety is a huge driver of team performance and innovation.
Nice. That's good to hear. So for the people who are listening, they may work in an organization that has changed their DEI policy,
Yeah.
and they may be allies
Yeah.
toward a lot of different cultures, communities. Um, what advice would you give them specifically for how they might show up in an organization where culturally the organization's beliefs don't entirely align with theirs?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that that's a struggle that a lot of people are feeling right now. A tension. It's causing a lot of distrust in the workplace, distrust of their employer. I think that the important thing to do right now is to focus on our relationships, to focus on building authentic connections, and it's a great opportunity to reach out to people on your team or people within your department or function who maybe you don't know as well, who might be having a hard time through all this. It's a great time to show your own wisdom, show your own compassion, and strengthen relationships. I think that's what we need to focus on is our relationships.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's such a great point because when I think back, especially with the teams that I've led throughout my career, people make judgments. People
Yeah.
make comparisons, especially if you're on a team where there's other managers in that same role. And
Hmm.
I would always say, look, if you're on my team, this is how I show up. This is how I lead. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Other people do it differently, but this is how we play here. And whenever we're in this space, this is how we play. And some people above me were okay with that, and some people were like, eh. I'm like, doesn't
Hmm.
matter. My team, my rules, and this
Yeah.
is the rules that we create together in that regard.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the people on your team loved you for that, right?
Uh, I definitely can say there were a lot of people whom I've had the chance to work with and work alongside of that definitely appreciated that for the very simple reason you highlighted earlier, which was about creating that safe space for them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bernadette, maybe your crystal ball's functioning or it's broken right now or whatever. I don't know specifically, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to kind of think a little forward with us for a moment in terms of where this DEI conversation is heading. And if we're going to continue to find those good vibes in DEI for those people who are allies and support DEI for what it truly is, what does this look like moving forward?
Well, I think that if we look at the history of the world, it's always progress and regression and progress and regression, right? And so, I'm completely of the belief that we ultimately have to keep moving forward and look at how are we loving each other? How are we showing up for each other? And that's what the heart of DEI is all about. It's about being better humans and setting other people up for success, setting ourselves up for greater success. And so who doesn't want that? But we might have to change the words. We might have to think about how we can do things a little more differently, or measure things differently, measure the impact, show the impact, communicate it differently. All of that stuff, there's room for improvement, a lot of room for improvement. But ultimately, I think that the work is still going to need to be done. And so I'm here for it. My team is here for it. And I know a lot of other people are as well. So even if I'm shouting out on my newsletter firsts, or things that seem kind of trivial, I will take all the good vibes I can get and share them widely.
Nice.
Now more than ever.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Who are the people in this space that you tend to look toward and lean toward as leaders in this space, such as yourself?
So my firm is called Equality Institute. But I would say, follow Lily Zhang on LinkedIn. They are a great pragmatic leader. They have amazing thought leadership. So I would say follow them. They just wrote a great article for the Harvard Business Review about sort of the future of DEI that I would encourage folks to check out.
Will do. I will find that and make sure that's in the show notes as well. Bernadette, thank you so much for having this conversation with me and with all of us today. As we start wrapping up here, whether it be something you've already shared or something you haven't, what's one piece of advice or suggestion you'd love to give everybody to help them build their mid-career GPS?
Leverage your relationships, reconnect with folks, people, and be a resource for others. People are afraid of asking for help, but asking for help brings people closer together. So don't be afraid to ask people in your world for help, to show them that you're available. So really leverage your connections, leverage your network by asking for help.
That's very sound and much needed advice. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Bernadette, if people want to connect with you, find you, learn more about you, I'm going to turn the mic over to you right now. Please tell us all the great places where people can connect.
You can find more about my speaking business and my firm at bernadettesmith.com. And to get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com and check out the podcast, 5 Things in 15 Minutes, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
I will make sure all of that is in the show notes. Bernadette Smith, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for being a great guest on the Mid-Career GPS podcast.
My pleasure, John. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So my friends, this was a much needed conversation we needed to have today. And I thank you for sticking with us and listening to all of this. If there's one big takeaway that I have here, it's Bernadette's tactic about showing up from a place of kind curiosity. Being that person, that ally, that support, that leader within your organization and your life, where you can ask, respect, and connect, and use that to build those relationships. Because as you're building your mid-career GPS, we know time and time again that it is the relationships you build along the way that those people become huge advocates for the work you are doing. And in this job market right now, how you stand out, how you are different, how are you being that light for other people, in addition to the quality of the work you are doing, will absolutely continue to get you noticed. So until next time, my friends, remember this: you will build your mid-career GPS 1 mile or 1 step at a time, and how you show up matters. Make it a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Mid-Career GPS podcast. Make sure to follow on your favorite listening platform. And if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your comments on Apple Podcasts. Visit johnnerrell.com for more information about how I can help you build your mid-career GPS, or how I can help you and your organization with your next workshop or public speaking event. Don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me on social at John Nerrell Coaching. I look forward to being back with you next week. Until then, take care, and remember, how we show up matters.